So we're reviewing exponentials because why? Because you have the cumulative test. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was the transformations here. This one went 4 to the what? Right? What if I'd put a negative in front? What would that have meant? Reflect. There's two kinds, vertical and horizontal. If it's on the outside, it's vertical. And you should remember high vo. What does high vo stand for?
Horizontal.
Horizontal on the inside, and vo? Vertical outside. Okay, good. Next thing is there's an asymptote right here on the x-axis. What's its name? Y equals 0. Now, what if I just put 0? That's not an asymptote. The asymptote has to have x equals or y equals. A couple of you lost the point on that one on the most recent test. Asymptotes can't just say a number. So x equals 0 is totally different than y equals 0. So these graphs are exponential. Their asymptotes start here. When would it ever move? If you put a number on the outside like this. See, if I put a plus 8 out here, it would move up 8. So then the new asymptote would be 8. It's wherever it moves to. Okay? All right. Next thing is, do you remember fraction exponents? Like 27 to the negative 2/3. I can do it in my head. Can you? And you might think, well, I just do it on the calculator. Well, you do get a calculator on this cumulative test, but we're going to throw a letter in it. And as soon as we throw a variable in it, the calculator won't be able to do it. Brandon, third root of 27. And then, this is the root part. This is the power part. So you're right, squared. 3 squared is 9, and then? Nice, 1 over that. So therefore? 1/9. Raise your hand if you had 1/9. Nice. Okay, so you remember fraction exponents. That's good. If you have two things that are like this, you can simplify that into just 1a. Don't say it. Write what the answer is as just 1a. A to the what? Don't say it. Write it. A to the what? Who had x minus 5? That was it. Okay, good. This was the test where we did a lot of time where we would try to make the bases the same. So let's say we had that, and then let's say it equaled the third root of a. If I could just make the bases the same, the answer would probably be way easier. So solve this one. Hint, the right side can be made into a to a power. A to the 1/3. Did you remember that? Cool. Then x minus 5 equals 1/3, and that feels like an equation that I could solve. So I just add 5 to both sides, 5 and 1/3. Raise your hand if you had 5 and 1/3. You were right. Cool. Okay. What else do you have to know for exponentials? Well, all different kinds of exponents. Like, for instance, let's say I had the nth root, and let's say that this is a 2 to the power of x. Simplify that. Then I'm going to set it equal to 16. I want you to solve for n. And some people freak out when there's a variable involved. Our last test, same thing. Some people were like, but there's a variable in this. Get used to it. When you move to pre-calc, there's tons of variables. There's not always just one variable. Your answer has variables in it. It's okay. Did you start with 2 to the power of x over n? That's how you should have started. And then 16 is really 2 to the 4th. Then bases are the same super quick. Once the bases are the same, the exponents have to be equal. X over n equals 4. And then how do I do this? Clear the fractions. My advice is if you can factor it, you should. And then if there's fractions, clear them. Timesing by n. Boop. X equals 4n. Is that x is alone? Yay. Is that what I want to solve for? No. I want to solve for n. Well, you could solve for either one, but I'm pretty sure I told you to solve for n, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're dividing by 4. Dividing by 4. X over 4 is n. Okay. Now, I don't want to go over logs right now because you just took the logs test and you obviously should know what's going on there, except I do want to hand your test back to you. And so now, your job is, there's a review. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put up a Dropbox at the end of right before the cumulative, and I'm going to ask you to Dropbox what you did for review. I threw a whole bunch of things in there. Now, do you get, if you aced one of the tests, you probably don't have to review that very much, right? So, but if you do absolutely nothing for review, then you'll get no points for that, which will hurt your grade a little bit. So do something for review. If I look at a worksheet and you only did like 2 problems, you're not going to get many points for the review. Okay, so do some stuff, and this is up to you now. So if you know, well, yeah, I kind of got to be on both of them. I needed to review a little bit of both. Well, then Dropbox that. If it turns out you just had one of your tests was bad, do some problems to practice for that. The minimum is you have to decide based on your score. If you only do 1 or 2 questions, I can't give you many points for that. Do some questions to practice. Do you remember how important cumulatives are? I'm just going to remind you. Let's say you're one of the kids that got an A and then another A, and I know you don't know what your score on today's test is because I didn't put them in yet, so you don't know. But imagine that you had 2 A's, and all of a sudden you just completely let down in the cumulative, and you get instead of a 95 and a 95 that you had going, you get an 80. Well, now, great. You just dropped your average on 3 tests to a B. Yep, that's what would happen. So, bottom line, you can't afford to let up if you want an A. You want to study so that you don't forget anything. On the other side, if you've got a kid with 2 B's and you do the corrections, remember that deal? You're supposed to do corrections on anything you got wrong because you want to make sure you know how to do those things, right? And then all of a sudden, you get a 95 on the cumulative. That's going to go back and fix this. And let's say you got a 95 on both parts of the cumulative. All of a sudden, you had a B average, and now you can have an A average, all from 1 test. So this is a big deal. The cumulative coming, not tomorrow, but the next day. So we got today and tomorrow to review, and test is the next day.
On Sunday?
Sorry. Okay, fine. Class days. So Monday will be a review day, and then Tuesday is the cumulative test. Does that make sense? All right, so use your time. You got a lot of time in class. And that's all I have for the video for today. I'm going to do a little fun pie stuff here, though, in a second.